In the early days of colonization in the 16th and 17th century, major lawyers said that Europeans have the right to move to other parts of the world, while, for example, enslaved Africans were brought against their will to other parts of the world. So that was the beginning of that divided mobility. Since the middle of the 19th century, in Europe, you see that Europeans still have the right to move around, but for example, Italian workers who moved to France did not have the right to move as they like, but they could be expelled by France if France wanted that. And in that process, Italians were being racialized, so they were constructed as being racially different. In the process of justifying the control of migration of Italian workers to France, in the 19th century, scientific theories were being invented that said that Southern Europeans actually were a different species of human beings than Scandinavians and German Dutch. They were racialized, they were made into a race. And later they were deracialized, so now we think Italians are just like Germans. What you see in migration law in Europe, also in other parts of the world, but I'll focus on Europe. So what you see in migration law in Europe is that it excludes all Africans and most Asians from free movement, while Europeans and their descendants in settler colonies do have a right of free movement, not just in Europe, but also across the world. This has been brought to the Human Rights Court in Strasbourg, so to the European Court of Human Rights, where people said, hey, it's unfair. It was about women who lived legally, so with a residence permit in the United Kingdom, and they wanted their husbands to join them. And they said, it's unfair that I cannot do that. Then the European Court of Human Rights figured out a way of justifying this system that does not allow Asians and Africans to move, while it does allow Europeans to move. And it succeeded in doing that without mentioning the word race. So it allowed states to do race without using the word race. That's a very technical legal thing. It takes a long time to explain how that exactly works, but that is the trick that the European Court of Human Rights and later also the Court of Justice of the European Union succeeded in doing. Doing race without mentioning the words. Doing race essentially is making sure that your legislation has different effects for people of color and than for white people. One alternative is the way in which the Inter-American and African human rights courts interpret human rights. They do that differently than the European Court in Strasbourg. For two reasons. First of all, they require states to justify why they don't want a particular migrant to be in the United Kingdom or Belgium or Italy, while the European Court does the opposite. It requires migrants to justify why they want to marry this person. Why did you fall in love with this person? Couldn't you fall in love with somebody else? One alternative is to apply human rights as they are in any other field, namely the state has to justify a limitation of rights. A second alternative has been developed by an African academic working in the US, Chuma is her name, who essentially argues that migrants from the third world have a right to go to the global north because the wealth that was taken from them went to the global north. So they have a right to follow that wealth. For economic and also personal and family self-determination. So here's her approach. It's very interesting and new. It's also very problematic. We're having lots of debates about it, but that's a second alternative.